I'm not saying that doing the things that God is a representation of God, forgiveness, love, all those things is not a good thing to do. What I'm saying is when we experience those things for ourselves, it empowers us to do them. And that is because we recognize God's love. Now, God said all those things, like love your neighbor as yourself, and things like that. A new commandment I give you, love one another. He said it because it's a representation of who he is. He's not requiring you to do something in your own strength that he's empowering you to do. So when you respond to something in obedience with the right heart, then you're not doing it under duty and obligation. You're doing it because you know that's what God is in love. So who knows where we are in the process of learning to engage God and touch God, and God's at work in us. So when God, he'll use every situation and bring good out of it. Okay. So even when I've done things which have been out of obligation and duty, and for me, that is wood, hay, and straw on my scroll. It doesn't mean that he didn't bring good out of it and use it. It's like he's used people in the past who you wouldn't really think were very godly, but he still uses that to bring good. So it doesn't prove anything one way or another. You can't say just because God used that situation that God wanted that situation. And some people will say that. And you can't say, in a sense, that if we're not obedient, that God will then in some way be negative towards us. It's like he won't, but he wants us to come to the truth that we don't need to be obedient under the law, but out of desire to do the things that actually he knows are best and he reveals to us as best. So you're in a process, and I think, he's at work in that process with you, and he's not looking down at, well, I did this and I didn't want to do it, but actually he was looking to motivate you to want to do it, which is why you did it in the first place. It's like he's at work in that. He's not sitting back watching our lives and watching us make mistakes and watching us do these things. He's actually integrally involved in our lives and is at work to bring good in every situation, even when we do make wrong choices or wrong motivation choices. When I looked at my scroll of my life and I went before the fire of God's eyes, he showed me all of the things that I did, which were motivated with a mixture that would be, for me, bringing something to me rather than just to God. So some of the things I did out of the wrong motives. Now, they were the right things, but I did them out of the wrong motives. So when I came to face that on my scroll, his love just cleansed all those things and purified them all. There was no guilt, shame, condemnation that he attached to it. I didn't feel, oh no, I feel really bad about it. Although, there was regret and there was sense of, woo, I didn't realize that my motives were quite as mixed as that in the past. But he always wants to reconcile, to restore, and to renew, and to make things whole in everything we do in every situation of our lives. So I think just see that you're in a process, and we don't necessarily understand everything of that process, and I'm not, when I say, God doesn't require us to be obedient, I'm not trying to say that the things that he has spoken and the truth that he's revealed aren't good things, but he wants us to be motivated by knowing his love rather than by fear. Now, how many people came to God through fear? Probably 95% of everyone who ever came to God came through fear, because that's what we've promoted, a fear gospel. Come to God or end up in hell. Now, did he turn around and say, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting you because you came through fear? Of course not. He'll receive people whoever way they come, but when they come, he will then be at work in their lives to see perfect love cast out fear. So the more you know the love of God, the less fear you will have and the less response that you will make in fear. So he's at work. I think the thing to say, he's at work in everybody, and everyone's in a different stage of the outworking of those things that he's doing. And if we're still in that stage where we're operating under an old covenant view or a law-based view, he'll still use those things. But what he'll be doing is trying to bring us into the freedom of realizing we don't need to come with that perspective, but to come from the perspective that is unconditional love, and that he's at work in us to unveil that love. So he will use even our obedience to the law. Is it the ideal, and is it what he wants us to be motivated by? Absolutely not. But he'll be at work in us to bring about the revelation that will free us from operating out of duty and obligation, and more be motivated by love. But to fully have that, we have to experience his love. That's the key. That's why God is looking to engage people in a reality of relationship to reveal his love that will free us from all the hindrances and religious restrictions and limitations that are placed on us, so that we can be free. And when we're free, then creation can start to come into freedom. And if we're in bondage, then creation is still going to be in bondage. Hi everyone, we're starting a Patreon page, and we would like to invite you to partner with us. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/freedomarc. Partner with us in taking the message of God's unconditional love, limitless grace, triumphant mercy to a bigger global audience.